Jim Harbaugh right now, even still to this moment, is denying. I don't never cheat, never steal, never lie. Those were three things his parent always told him. In his book, actually, in this book, by John U. Bacon, Jim Harbaugh and the Wolverines at the Crossroads of College Football, as Harbaugh said to me, it's hard to beat the cheaters. He literally quoted that in his book, and then he turns around and does the same thing. So very, 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 very ironic of what he said and what he thinks. I'm going to show you this one now. Now, this is his old coach, Bo Schembechler. When someone uncovers a scandal in their company, I don't think they can say, I didn't know what was going on. They're just saying they are too dumb to do their job. And if they are really too dumb, then why are they getting paid millions of dollars to do it if they don't know what's going on? Jim Harbaugh said yesterday, today, I do not apologize. I did not participate, was not aware, nor complicit in those said allegations. So it's back to work and attacking with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind, which is classic Jim Harbaugh weirdness at the end there. But so his old coach, who everyone thinks is, it's like Woody and Bo, Woody Hayes, Bo Schembechler, two of the greatest college football coaches of all time. But then he's basically saying, if you don't know what's going on in your company, you're kind of what's going on. You're kind of what's at fault. And Jim Harbaugh saying, I don't know what's going on in my company. So what say you on that?
Every sport that I've ever been involved in, the competitive teams and people push on the gray areas, the soft spots and the vulnerabilities to create an advantage. I don't care if you're talking about ball sports or racing or anything. If there's a place where you can get away with something and the margin of competition is like this, you'll take that advantage every time.
Basically what you're saying, if you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Absolutely. 100%.
And if you don't get caught, it's not a penalty. So they did what they got away. And as an Ohio State fan, alumni, I know I'm going to sound a little bit biased on this, but it's like, Ohio State was punished back in 2011. Jim Tressel lost his job for players trading some of the memorabilia that they won for tattoos. We now live in an NIL world where anything can be given away for free. Jim Tressel was fired for that, for helping the players not get in trouble for that. Jim Harbaugh knew. Now, here's where I will say there was a huge difference with that. When you can take an advantage on the field of play, there is a huge game implication for that, not a payment for a house or a tattoo or a car. This is actual on the field play where this is causing an advantage. So that to me is where I push back and say, they kind of unleveled the playing field, which you said, if there's some gray areas, you attack those. And I will say, in Michigan's defense, they won a national championship. And I mean, did they get caught? Yes, but they're not going to be those memories those fans have of that season beating Ohio State 3 times in a row when this cheating first started. And, the national championship this year, those memories can't be taken away. Those fans will remember that, and good for them, because the fans didn't do anything. But the program needs to be held accountable somehow, some way. I don't know what that's going to be, because Jim Harbaugh's out the door. Desmond Howard, a few years back, said, this was in 2011, Buckeye Nation, when did Tressel get all of you in the horseshoe and mass hypnotize you to believe he's infallible? He also said, so if Tressel gets a head coaching job in the NFL next season, this was after he was fired from Ohio State, does Roger Goodell suspend him for the first 5 games? Just asking. Those comments look very, very, very ironic now, as Jim Harbaugh leaves after he would have been either fired or suspended for a full year. Now he goes to the NFL, and he's going to serve no consequence in the NFL. So what say you on that? Should there be any repercussions?
No, I think the rule book. So I think when people start pushing on gray areas and take that advantage, they get a little greedy and they go too far. Like even thinking like in baseball, when you had, those performance enhancing drugs, right?
Right.
It's only the people that went like way overboard and to an extreme that made the rules have to reset because they went too far.
Sure.
So think about how many programs are doing that in ways where they're not going too far and they're just taking a slight advantage in those deals. So I think every league is going to have everybody sort of a little bit guilty of taking advantage of some of those things.
Okay. All right. I like that from you're not, this Ohio State fan. So it's kind of nice to hear like from a different perspective than what I'm thinking. Now, again, if this was happening in Columbus, Michigan fans would be coming in at Ohio State with pitchforks and, and vitriol and hate and all that stuff. Now it's, in East Lansing, which Michigan State, and Columbus, going at the Michigan people, which I totally get too from either perspective. But Maury Povich did have one thing to say on this. He said, "Never cheat, never lie, never steal." The lie detector determined that was a lie. So Jim Harbaugh, you are the father of that. So it all started with Connor Stallions. I wanted to touch on it briefly because it is an issue. It is an issue. It gave them, they were, I believe, I can't remember the record before Stallions showed up, but it was not very good. It was over 500.
Personally, it's tough to say what you would do if you were in that position where, let's just say, you notice something.
Yeah.
Like you notice when they did certain signs, and certain things happen, and you had information that was gotten just by sitting back and watching what happened.
Sure.
If you take that to an exponential level where then you try to decode their signs, are you, when you breaking the rules, when you notice something that was obvious, and then when you really made a concerted effort to decrypt their signs?
I think the way the NCAA defines it is institutional control. If you don't have control over your body, your coaches, your players, that's determined as institutional control. So one other thing that Jim Harbaugh said back a few months ago is he wanted immunity from termination, from firing, from sanctions if he were to speak on this. So that does not sound like an innocent person, though, in this. So again, I like what you're saying. I think what I say has some weight too. It might be somewhere in between. I don't really know.
Let's create a demarcation here.
Yeah.
Like where you go from just being aware of vulnerabilities to where it's flat out cheating. So we're playing poker, you and I, and you notice that when I got a strong hand, I twist my Oreos, right? You notice that and you use that to your advantage. When does it become institutional? You have information that gives you an advantage.
Okay, so that's a great point. That's a one-on-one. You take any advantage you can to win. So I like that. I like that because I know I'm checking. I'm checking
100%. So is it institutional then when the person that's staking you in that says, "Hey, when he twists the Oreos, make sure you check." Now is it institutional? What's the difference?
I think it's apples and oranges because it's a heads up. It's one-on-one.
Okay.
It's not, you're not in control of other 18 to 22-year-olds that you're telling, hey, when he does this, this is the kind of card he has.
I send the intern to watch you and pick out your tells. Now it's institutional because now we're trying to create
perhaps
an advantage.
Perhaps. But there are no rules in poker. There are rules in college football. So
decorum, baby. That's all it is. Decorum versus rules.
It is. And some of it is a little bit petty. I get that. But
if you ask me if Jim Harbaugh was a douchebag, I would say yes.
Okay. Let's hear what his attorneys say on this. His attorney, so Mars Law Firm, put out a statement on this COI decision. And they said, the way I see it from Coach Harbaugh's perspective, today's COI decision is like being in college and getting a letter from your high school saying you've been suspended because you didn't sign the yearbook. If I were in Coach Harbaugh's shoes and had an $80 million contract as head coach of the Chargers, I wouldn't pay any attention to the findings of a kangaroo court, which claims to represent the principles of the nation's most flagrant repeat violator of federal antitrust laws. Those sound like fighting words right there. So basically what they're saying is, hey, if you come back to high school, we're going to give you a detention after you're already graduated from high school. So that's kind of what it feels like to me.
I have nightmares about that exact scenario right there.
So maybe Jim Harbaugh will get nightmares from this, but he will not, most likely won't affect him at all. What will be coming down the line? Now, keep in mind, that was for Hamburger Gate, this like recruiting violation. This was for none of the sign stealing allegations. So there are more penalties coming down the line for this Michigan program. Should be very interesting.